it. So let's see. Give people a second here. All right. Cool. Okay. Hi, everyone, to our conference. Is it 6 o'clock yet, or should I wait one more minute? No, I should wait a few more seconds. I should wait. Okay. I hate when people start early. You don't want people to start on time, or you don't want people to start late, but you don't want to start too early and miss some people.
Right.
So, all right. There's already some people getting on. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that on YouTube? I don't. Oh.
It is. It's live on YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube.
Oh, there it is. I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild. I don't know if I can look at both screens at the same time.
What?
I don't know if I can look at the screen at the same time.
Like oh yeah, no. So if anybody does a comment or anything, we'll be able to see that.
Okay, cool.
So, and I will put it up. So, all right. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our conversation with Elizabeth Mason-Doubet. And my name's Terry Hofer, and this is the Octagon Shop in Ames, Iowa, which is part of the Octagon Center for the Arts. Part of our mission here at the Octagon is to encourage creative self-expression by providing inclusive space and opportunities that bring people together and add to our lives. And the pandemic has taught us to do this virtually, and so we are continuing to do this virtually because it makes it easier for people out-of-town artists to participate, which because Elizabeth is sitting in her studio in Marion, Iowa, and you can watch it later on YouTube, and anybody from anywhere can watch this at any time. So we're going to continue to do these in this way. The Octagon Shop sells artwork from Iowa and regional artists in the shop and in our galleries, and every month the shop features one of our artists, and this month it's Elizabeth, and all of her work is 15% off for the entire month of April. So that's a good deal. Here is one of Elizabeth's pieces. This is incredible. I tell you, you just really know how to do stuff. So we sell in the shop, and we also sell in the galleries, and we have classes, and we have events, and we'll be starting our patio parties in May, and of course music walk, and the festival is in September. You should come to you need to crank out some work and come to our festival sometime, Elizabeth.
I know. I do. Yeah.
But we know you're really busy. And there'll be information down at the bottom on the description after this gets uploaded to YouTube when we're all done. But sign up for our weekly emails on Tuesdays. It gets sent out, and we don't share your information. So you can stay up to date on all the classes and when they come out and everything. We're very excited to converse with Elizabeth this evening. I'm super excited because I do a little bit of metalsmithing. I'm not nearly at the level that Elizabeth is. So this is going to be really exciting. Her website is masonmetalworks.com, and you can go there and see some fabulous photos. And then there's links to all of her social media, and we'll show you her Instagram later. It's really fun. And Elizabeth grew up on a small farm, I'm guessing in Iowa, right?
Yep.
And she has a love for drawing, rock hunting, and exploring the unusual. And her dream was to work in illustration, mostly in costume design, and she ended up taking a metals class, and the rest is history. And for those of you who are familiar with Iowa State University, you may have heard of Joe Munch, who might be the reason why you're sitting surrounded by a whole bunch of tools right now.
Mm-hmm.
You want to share a little bit about that? You were telling me earlier.
Yeah, so I originally went to Iowa State. Well, to backtrack a little bit, originally at the meeting, I wanted to be in the medical field. And I had a couple of art teachers in high school that really encouraged me to, keep creating, keep doing what I was doing. They saw something. And
Right.
so they said, you know, you need to go do these things. And I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, okay, yeah, Iowa State, let's do that. They've got a fine arts program. You know, we'll do this. They have costume, you know, they have theater program, all this stuff.
Right.
And so I wanted to be a, you know, a visual artist, 2D artist. And I applied to ISA, got in. And that first year in the program, you don't just get to do what you want to do the first, you know, the second year you're in there, you have to do 8 half semester studios where you explore all the materials
And tell people what ISA is.
integrated studio arts. I don't
Okay.
know if it's still the same program because it's been a little bit, but yeah, it was 8 half semester studios and it was like woodworking, fiber, painting, 3D, and then there's this one called like metalsmithing and jewelry, and I was like, I have no idea what that is, you know, because we didn't really have that kind of stuff in high school. We didn't really have a shop, like an integrated like shop class and stuff. There was woods, but there
Right.
wasn't anything like metals related outside of like welding, but that, you know. So I took that half semester studio and Joe said, you know, you need to come back. And I was like, okay, you know. So I just kept going back and he kept encouraging me to do that and, you know, led the way. And
That's
so
awesome.
here I am many years later.
Well, you don't look that old, but yeah, you graduated college in 2010,
Hmm.
and those first couple, you said you really got started in 2012 when you really
Hmm.
started setting up your shop. So
Hmm.
was that in between time when you were doing other things, or you were just slowly building up your?
It was all very slow, mostly because getting out of school, you know, I did a couple of um, like internships per se, where I got to learn some actual, like not actual, but like goldsmithing, the goldsmithing aspect of metalworking. Um, did that for a little bit, and then it was like, you know, I needed a full-time job, I needed benefits, I needed all these things, like kind of the classic artist story where they kind of venture
Mhm.
off the path for a while to
Yeah,
do, you know, you know, I guess just have the money to, you know, do what you can. And then I
oh
slowly just kind of kept buying tools. And I started with, you know, practically nothing
yeah. Hmm.
and just slowly acquired things. And I'm still using things that I used back then. You know, I don't necessarily spend um, a lot on fancy tools and stuff because I've always learned from the very bare minimum. And then if you don't have a tool, you can make it. That was one of the coolest parts about Joe's class is that he showed you how to make your own tools or how to adapt your own tools. So,
Yeah,
and if you think about it too, like the Egyptians didn't have fancy tools.
exactly.
They didn't even have light bulbs. So it's like if I can't figure out how to make this with what I have, I don't know what to do. You know, so that's how I approach it. But yeah, the first couple years out of school, I did a couple apprenticeships, then kind of wandered off the path. I always did metalworking on the side, and in 2012, you know, I was approached like, hey, can you make, you know, a wedding ring and a set or whatever? And it was like, okay. And I done some art festivals too. Like I was in it, but I wasn't in it
Right,
full time.
right.
So in 2012, it was like, hey, I need, you know, a wedding set. We'd like you to do it. And I was like, that's so cool. And I was like, how does somebody get a diamond? You know, it was like, how do
Yeah,
you get these things? And I had
yeah,
to learn like, well, I knew you had to have a business. You know, you had to have a license to do all that stuff. So I
yeah.
was like, okay, I'm gonna go get me a license and I'm gonna go get me some diamonds and we're gonna do this thing. And that's what I did. And you know, there were several really great people along the way that would help me along because they knew I was just starting out. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll cast that for you know, or I'll do this for you, you know, like,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
like obviously I was paying them, but like, you know, they were willing to help me along the way too. So I wasn't all alone, you know, doing that.
Right.
And
So
I
those
did,
that first set of wedding bands was, yeah, you cast those?
I had somebody else cast them because I
Well, I
didn't
mean,
have the,
I mean, they were cast, but it was,
oh
your
yeah,
design and everything. Yeah.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
I carved the wax and
Yeah.
everything. Yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep.
Maybe we'll talk about that process maybe a little later so people
Hmm.
understand what that means. But
Hmm.
because there's so many ways to manipulate the metal.
Hmm.
Um, and it looks like you do just about every method.
I'm getting there. I'm
You're
getting there. But the main ones are fabrication and casting, and I do both
Yeah.
of those things.
Oh yeah. 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 It's pretty incredible. Who did you apprentice under?
I did a little bit with a guy in Ames, and then I was in Des Moines for a little bit as well.
Oh, who in Ames?
Um,
Was
Mike,
it one of our, or can you say, maybe you can't say?
I it was Mike Gilger. I was there for a little
Oh, he's
bit.
well, both gotta say that both of our jewelry stores in Ames, in downtown Ames, are amazing, and they have
Super
amazing
talented.
people. Oh
Yeah.
my God, so many talented people. And yeah, so there's Gilger Designs, which is Mike Gilger, and now his sons are um, uh, following in his footsteps.
Mhm.
So they're
Mhm.
making some really nice stuff. And then Ames Silversmithing,
Mhm.
they've got a great team in there. So yeah, I and uh, Mike Gilger actually helped me make my daughter's wedding bands because
Cool.
yeah, and yeah,
He's a super talented dude.
I got
Like beyond. If you knew his whole story, which I assume you know parts of it, it's like,
I
whoa.
don't, yeah. I should
Like,
interview him sometime. Yeah.
yeah, pick his brain.
Oh,
It'd
yeah.
be good.
They were all so nice and showed me because I did it in white gold and I hadn't messed with gold before. So
Mhm.
he showed me how to do that. And that was so generous of them. Um, do you know when you wanted to be an artist?
No,
Yeah.
I think I've always been creative in the sense
Yeah.
that I blame it on my parents because growing up on a farm in rural Iowa, we didn't have cable TV and all that stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of a story, being outside and mom and dad, they wouldn't buy me like toys for Christmas. I'd get like kits, like I remember one specifically was, believe it or not, it was like mine your own gems, and like
Fun.
fossils and things like that, or even
Yeah.
like a crochet thing. And like some of it I picked up on, some of it I didn't, but it always involved like tactility. So I was always using my hands. And I think
Yeah.
that's what translated into like all this other stuff, is I always had to stay busy with my hands for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Did you have siblings?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I have a older brother, a younger sister, and a younger brother.
Okay. Sweet.
And we're all kind of creative in our own ways,
Yeah.
which is interesting because, some people are, my sister and I are pretty creative. I mean, I don't know. It's just, she can
Well,
draw and she can do a lot of stuff.
and yeah, like you say, there's creativity in everybody, and there's a lot of people who are
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm not artistic, and that's bull. There's
Right.
a little bit in everybody. So
Right.
just finding what you like to do, and or your creativity is just something different, more with yeah,
Hmm.
just how you do things or how your brain thinks and decorations and fixing things and all kinds of ways to be creative. So who do you think helped you feel um, the most confidence in like, yeah, I can do this. I could actually do this. Is there one? Maybe it's a group of people. Maybe it's not any one person.
I think it's a lot of things. I mean, I blame a lot of stuff on Joe.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was the one to really kick my butt into like, you need to do this,
I hear that a lot about him as a professor at Iowa State. That
he's a fantastic professor. And the last time I went there, I took my uncle John, who worked in the dental field for a very long time, and he also taught as well. And John was interested in seeing, what the metal studio did.
right.
And his comment when we were driving home was like, he's a very nourishing person. Like he instills a lot in you, so it's very cool. If you're fortunate to have Joe as a teacher, like rock on.
Mm-hmm.
And pick that dude's brain and get as much as he can out of him.
Right.
Because he's a
Yeah.
gold mine. No pun intended. But I
So
think
anyway.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So Joe, and you were going to talk about somebody else.
Yeah, so I think the one event that I went, oh yeah, I can do this, was I was right out of school, doing my first internship, and I was in the Des Moines Arts Festival. And that first year, it was 2011, and I mean, I didn't have any money. Like, I had no money, but I had a little shared studio space at Casa, in the
Oh,
basement,
nice.
and I was sharing it. I was lucky enough to have a friend who was also a metalsmith. She goes, "Hey, you can use, half the studio. Like, hey, I'll help you out." I had a lot of people help me out to get me to where I am.
Sure.
She was
Yeah.
one of them. Also
Yeah.
ISU grad. Um, that's where I made all my first bits of work. We didn't even have a flex shaft. It was a hand crank drill. Oh yeah, like and
I think I'd rather use a Dremel than, yeah.
yeah, and well, I mean, and then we had a plumber's torch and for soldering and all this other
Oh,
stuff.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I got everything. We did that for a show, and like I didn't have enough gas to get me back up to Des Moines, or from Des
Ames.
Moines to Ames. Yeah, excuse me. And I was like, I am broke. Like, if I don't sell anything, I ain't getting back home. Well, the first day I did like $1,500, and it was
Wow.
like, oh, okay,
I got money now.
this is kind of cool. And it wasn't even at that point, I wasn't even thinking about the dollars, because that's always
Great.
kind of in the back somewhere, because that's where artists are like,
Yeah.
meh.
Yeah.
But yeah, the amount, people, some lady just walked up and was like, I gotta have that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then it just kind of kept going for 3 days. It was just that. It just kept going. And I was like, okay, I can totally do this. And then, I did it the next year. And then I'd done some moving and stuff, so I didn't do it the year after that or anything. But it was quite the experience, and that's a big motivator too, because it was like, oh, I can really do this. And then I got in line with some galleries, so like the Octagon being one of them,
Mhm.
and it was just like, I can do this. So I don't know how, but I'm going to continue on figuring out how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things to think about when you're doing art shows and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you got to do sales tax and you got to register with the state and you got a tent and you got to have, how are you going to display it
Hmm.
and all that stuff. And
How do
it's
you make a profit?
exactly. Yeah. How do you figure out all of the overhead and all your time?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, and it just builds with every year. But
Hmm.
the one positive about doing jewelry anyway is it's a lot lighter to carry. And if
Absolutely.
all your setup stuff weighs
It fits
takes
in
up
your
the room.
actual inventory fits in a
Yeah,
box this
yeah, yeah.
big, like, and then the rest of it takes up all the space, but the jewelry itself is quite small. And you're like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, and let's look at some of your stuff that we have here. So this is what I held up earlier. This is on a leather cord. These are a little hard to show. I probably should have pulled a picture from online, but you can see the little stones in there. And you've cut out on the back so the light helps to go
Mhm.
through. And what I tell people when I show them these is that you can't even see your solder lines. So I'm
Mhm.
assuming that you built this box, um, and there's you soldered all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of metal together. Well, actually, no, because then you have another 4 up here, right?
So it's
That how you
actually it's
fabricated that one?
what's that?
Is that so? Yeah, go ahead and tell me how you made this piece.
So one of the projects we had to do in Joe's class, because everything I do is pretty much based on what I, originally learned, and then I adapt and make it different. But that's actually a score box piece where it's two L-shaped pieces, and the scoring happens in the corners.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. And that
So then
saves
you,
you, yeah, so you don't have to solder every single
yep.
piece. Yeah.
So then you solder those together, and then it's got a back plate, a top plate, a center plate, and then three bezel settings.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the attachment at the top is actually a squared tube,
Yep.
because I wasn't going to score that. You kind of pick and choose your battles, and that's where I.
Exactly. But you still had to, so you scored the brass, but you still had the solder, and I have a hard time finding your solder lines. It's just
That's awesome.
really good. So I mean, because you don't want it to be obvious, and it's
Right.
it's yeah. And now I have to polish it because I've been.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to get fingerprints all over.
Right.
So there's that. And so you have several different sizes that we happen to have in the shop right now. So here's one of the littler ones. They're so pretty. So you hand sawed the silver piece that's in there, right? And new saw or old saw?
I'm
How
still
old?
using I'm still using the same saw I got when I started metals class in 2007.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
what about, because I always see ads for the new, is it the new green
Green Lion,
lion
whatever it is.
saw, and there's some other and so you didn't buy one? You haven't tried one? Yeah,
No, I bet it's probably cool, but I mean, this one does the trick.
right?
So
Yeah.
I
If
and
it
sometimes
holds
the
onto
whole
your blade, then it should be good, right?
right. I mean, I might have like super glued the handle back on, but it totally still works. Like it's a great saw. Like as long as the thing is about metalsmithing and goldsmithing and all this stuff. It's not about how good your tools are. It's about your technique, and if you have the technique down, you can kind of make anything work.
Right?
It's when you get stuck in that, like, well, I don't have a mandrel that's this and this. It's like, okay, but do you really need one, or can you make it out of wood, or like, a dowel works for certain things. It's just how
Absolutely.
adaptable can you be?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've used knitting needles as dowels, which is
Mhm.
fun because they're all different sizes and they're
Mhm.
metal. Yeah. Show us your saw. Can you reach it from where I see it hanging behind you, I think, on your, there you go. Yeah. So in case anybody. So yeah, very simple. Got the wing nuts. Looks like you
Yep.
just stole it right out of Iowa State College of
Right.
Design.
Right. Well, and the sad part is the guy that he originally made the kits for Joe a long time ago. I mean, he passed away. So
Oh,
this is one of the saws that came in that first original kit that guy set up. And that guy also helped me do a bunch of things, but
nice.
he was another jeweler in Des Moines, and that's where I got it from. And
Oh,
it's kind of a little piece of history.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So how has your art changed over time? Thinking back to that first Des Moines Art Festival, and
Quite
then
a bit.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
I
go
didn't mean to
ahead.
interrupt you
No,
there.
no.
A lot. So, and I've changed through time too. And so with that, everything just kind of has flipped over and it continues to flip over. And I think a big turning point for me was, I was always doing things on the side and
Yeah.
I wasn't pushing myself the way I wanted to, didn't feel fulfilled by it in terms of like the artistic side. And then I was also working a job that it also was not fulfilling. And,
So you're working a
corporate,
job and trying to do your jewelry
yeah,
outside of job hours. Yeah.
yeah. And which is fine, I can do that. But it was like, you get drained by a lot of things. And 4 years ago, I think it's been 4 years. 4 years ago, we'll just say, uh, I had quit a corporate job and decided that I was going to do this full time. Just kind of took the leap. And one of the reasons for doing that was, my dad was like, you better do what you want to do because there's going to be a time when you can't.
Yep.
And so that's what I did. And I don't know if it was insanity or what, but it was, it's always slow to start, and you're just kind of wading through all this uncertainty. But if you stick with it and keep going, and you'll find your people and your network and all that stuff, and it'll just kind of go. And it was really cool that all worked, and it's still working. I mean, it's still progress.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
it's how great for your dad to say that. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
true. You've got the whole rest of your life to be, yeah, do it when you're young,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're amassing so much expertise and so much experience and so much. I mean, do you feel like you're constantly still learning new things or perfecting things?
Absolutely. And I would say I learned more in the last 4 years than I pushed myself to do in like the time between graduating in 2018. So there's 8 years where it was like I pushed myself, but I didn't push myself enough. In the last 4, I've been like just hammering away. And it's kind of cool. Like, you never know until you try, and then you try it and you're like, this is cool. And you just kind of keep growing with it, like teaching yourself how to use a laser welder, doing setting applications you haven't done before, working with alloys you haven't done before. Like, what's this type of casting? I don't know. Let's try it out. And you just kind of keep going. So it's an ongoing education process, and it's mostly self-taught,
Yep.
but I do reach out where it's like, well, I don't understand why this casting didn't turn out, or whatever. And somebody will help you, but at the end of the day, it's all on you to figure it out.
Oh.
But I would, yeah, it's kind of insane just looking at what I did 4 years ago to now. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It is like,
So
but
did you get your master's 4 years ago? Did you get your
No.
master's 4 years ago?
No.
What was your, because I thought you graduated in 2010 from ISU?
Yeah, I graduated in 2010 from ISU.
And what was
then
2018?
2018 is when I quit my
Oh,
corporate job.
yeah. Okay.
And then I managed to like, okay, do this full time, get married, and like do a lot of things in a very small amount of time. So it was like, what am I doing? But now I kind of know what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
like at that point, it was like, wow,
And you do so much. It's really I'm gonna share your Instagram and there we go. So you can, is that showing up there?
Yep.
Should be. I don't see it on the, I'm looking to see if it's showing up on the YouTubes. There it goes. There it goes. Okay. Sorry, people, I had to wait and make sure it was going to work. So I scrolled down to the bottom, but yeah, your work is just amazing. And here you've got some sketches that you did. Do you do a lot of that?
Sometimes it depends on the project. And at that time, it was about making a series of collections for a show.
Uh-huh.
The show never ended up happening. So that, I mean, beyond my control, it had nothing to do with me per se. But I still managed to hammer out a bunch of pieces for that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I have an idea in my head and I already know how to kind of make it, I don't necessarily need a drawing. But if I want to form some sort of collection or have to work out how it's going to be made because it's more complex than what meets the eye, then I'll do illustrations. And for custom work, for most custom pieces, it's like,
Yeah. But yeah, and there's some of the, here we go. Those are really cool. And SVGN, you were telling me via email what that meant.
So it means sign.
Yeah.
And the inverted V is like relative to the A in the logo sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about kind of like an artifact or like a lost language. And one of those things that Joe talked about when I first took his metals class is like, if you dig through a box in your like grandpa's garage, how many, somebody digs through a box in somebody's grandpa's garage like a bajillion years from now and digs that out of a box, what does it say? Yeah. Or like if somebody dug that up on the beach, like what is it? What is it? It's like it's about that kind of like a lost language or a lost
Yeah. That's
artifact.
really cool. So we have a couple of those earrings here too. And let's see. And then of course all your lovely tools. Look at how nice and tidy this bench looks.
It don't look like that no more.
It looked like that for about 10 minutes maybe or something, right?
I mean, it's amazing.
Right? You're like, oh yeah, no, I scrolled all the way back. But there you are at a show. Love this picture. This is great.
And here's a funny thing. My husband and I actually met in painting class at ISU, but we also took metals together. So, we met at ISU and we had Joe's classes together, but we really didn't reconnect until like 2016, 2017.
Oh.
Yeah. Long lost love story.
How sweet. That is a great story. Where you're a wonderful people. And here's some more of the sign pieces. Just lovely. So that's sterling. Tell people that's sterling with.
it's sterling with a technique called kumbo, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually Korean. And what it is you raise fine silver to the surface of sterling, and then the pure gold is able to bond. It's like a type of diffusion bonding through heat and pressure that it's really cool to watch when you do it. It just kind of like sticks on there, and then you burnish it, and it's on there. It ain't coming off.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't. Yeah.
it's not a gold leaf. It's a gold foil, so it's thicker than gold leaf.
Mm-hmm. It'll stay. So it's very, very wonderful. And then these are pieces that are very popular. And what blows my mind is all your layers that you have in these pieces when you have these, the depth of them are just really something.
Yeah, and the first ones I made only had one layer. And again, it's a hollow form construction, but it's round instead of square, compared to the other one. And over time, they just built more layers. And I'm like, well, I want diamonds in this, or I want more visual whatever to it. And it's like, well, how do I get that? So it's like nothing's ever flat unless it's a square box form, like what that other thing is.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like flat. So I'm like, how do we make this more dimensional?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, yeah, your stuff's really good. And again, your technique and your skill of putting these pieces together, and you can't see the glue, you can't see the solder. And oh wait, where's your puppy? Look at this guy.
Yeah, it's Eva.
God. Oh.
Yeah, she's helpful on occasion. She's really helpful when I get back out of the studio. Yeah, and there's Henry. Yeah.
That's adorbs. Okay. And I'm skipping past a whole bunch. You guys are just going to have to go on her Instagram and see for yourself. But just look at how amazingly lovely. Such beautiful stones. Are you going to share with people where you get your stones from? Different places online, or?
I typically like to support small lapidary artists. And one thing about like referring people to stone or lapidary artists that they can't necessarily, it's not that they don't want to sell to you, it's that they can't handle the volume of people. And they don't want like this huge influx of people being like, well, can I get these? And they don't have it either. Because a lot of these pieces that I get, especially for custom works like those briolet drops and whatnot, those are custom one-off type things. Like it's not like that person has a bunch of material sticking around. But if you're just starting, I would recommend, obviously, Rio Grande has a lot of options. Etsy, you can find a lot of, I bought stones on Etsy, like that's an Etsy stone. And then going to shows and stuff and actually go talk to people, discover who your gem people are, and you'll always build your network that way. But and there's no offense, hidden gems. There's lapidary people in Iowa.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
And if you find them, like, they're more than happy to.
Yeah. We had a great guy who he closed his shop last year, but the guy who had the shop out on the west side of town, West Side Agates.
Oh, I used to go there. It's not there anymore?
Yeah. Well, I think his stuff is still in there, but he's pretty much done selling. But
honestly, you can practically find everything on Etsy.
Yeah.
So, if you can't find it in one, that's how I
find show. Yeah, a rock show.
What's that?
Just going
rock shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, you get some nice stuff. What do you want people to know about your work?
That you have a person behind it making it. In the world of like mass production and computer aided software and stuff, like CAD work and everything, there are still people out there, including me, that are hand making goods.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that we don't use those other processes, because sometimes we
Right.
have to, you know,
Right.
like, but at the end of the day, you know, you're kind of stuck with me too when you get a piece, like, as far as like, you know, if something happens to it or whatever it may be, like, you're stuck with me, and you can call me directly instead of calling
Mm-hmm.
like a 1-800 number and being like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you know, and you're getting a work of art, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that I truly mean, like, you know, when it comes to wedding gifts or memorial pieces or whatever it is, I truly try, you know, I do. It's not that I try to convey everything I can into that piece, you know,
Right.
whether it's like a love for another person, like translate his love for her, or a memory of some kind, or
Yeah.
a joyous occasion. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, this is really lovely what you made. This was that a custom piece there?
Both of them are.
Yeah.
So the one is a mother's branch necklace.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's got two birthstones, and it's silver with the kumbo on the leaves. And
Yeah.
then the bracelet is 14K all assembled. And I made the little beads and everything that go in between there. And that also has, so it's a mother's branch and then a grandmother's bracelet for the same family,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Mm-hmm. Uh, it's just really stunning. And you do a lot of, of custom work, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what that is what I do most of the time. 90% of the time it's custom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which also, it's like, when am I going to have time to make all that other stuff, you know, that I
Right.
dream about making? So it's kind of trying to figure out the balance of things right now, because custom's really cool.
Yep.
But at the same time, you want to do, you know, your artistic work. Not that that's not artistic whatsoever, but
Right.
you know, I like to do really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Not that that's not crazy, but it's you know, it's beautiful, it's timeless, it's classic, you know, with being different at the same time, but it's not like that crazy sign periapt Austria line stuff that I do.
But well, I mean, you have to. Do you think that I mean, you are getting yourself. You're putting yourself
Oh,
into
absolutely.
designs.
Yeah.
It's even though they ask you for something specific,
Yeah.
you
And I
know. And
mean,
I'm sure other people give you, you know, more leeway than others, possibly.
right. Well, and I think when they approach me, they kind of, 90% or yeah, 90% of the time it's like, do you, you know, you do you. And it's like, okay, but I try to adapt it to the person, you know, like what are they about, you know, kind of what's their style, like what's their, you know, whereas my work is all about me, you know, and my work is all about me. Custom work is about them,
Right.
but also with my artistic style in it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's just really lovely. I
Yeah.
forgot to ask when we were started to talk about rocks for a little bit. I want to know, can you go to a rock show and not buy anything? Have
I
you
tried last time and I couldn't do it. Because the last time I bought a couple of things, I'm like, okay, no. You know, I knew, and it was actually a couple weekends ago, they had the Cedar Rapids rock show.
Yep.
And I'm
My
like, I'm
sister
not,
goes there. She goes there every year to that
it's
place. It's
kind,
wonderful.
it's kind of a happening place. You'd think Cedar Rapids of all places, you're like, meh, you know, no. It, it's got some pretty legit stuff in there. And I went in and I'm like, I refuse to take, I like to pay you cash or check or whatever to rock dealers and all that stuff, because there's no fees associated with
Right.
that and all that other
Credit
stuff. I
card
like to
fees.
support my small lapidary people. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I'm not taking it in cash. I go in there and I went with my sister, and we saw a tray of Siberian cat's eye jade, which you do not see. And I go, and I know the guy, you know, and he's like, oh, you know, and I'm like, no. And then the next thing you know, my sister's like slipping me money, and she goes, you'll pay me back. And I go, oh, you know, but I mean,
So
the problem with rocks is once you see it and you're like, I really should have, and you leave and you didn't buy it, you probably, you'll regret not buying it.
Yep.
So,
yep. And I'm going to share your Instagram again because that's what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
So
that's
cool.
it.
I mean, yeah. And it's called Siberian because it's from Siberia.
Yep.
So
you're not going to see that material for quite some time,
No. Yeah. That's a good point, especially with what's going on right now. So
yeah.
Crazy stuff, man. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that guy had collected it for 35 years. So, and he waited to like cut it and all that stuff. So it's like, I saw it and had to have it.
Well, judging from what I've seen on your social media, it's like, yeah, it's yeah.
I do that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I want you to give us a little tour of your studio, and I don't know if you can show your bead stash or your cabochon stash.
Hold on.
Okay.
I can.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I go grab it real quick? I'll grab a tray.
You can grab a. I was going to say, how could you grab it? You can possibly.
I'll just grab a tray.
Okay. And as you look, you can see your bench behind. So that's really nice. Nice bench back there.
And I have a couple of benches. This is the fabrication bench, which earlier I had mentioned. This is actually the bench I used in college because Joe had saved the benches when he redid the studio, and he kept this one for me. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's pretty amazing, yeah.
And that is my main bench. That's one I've used since I've been out of school. And then we have an old watchmaker's bench that is the wax bench because we like to separate wax from, the metal part of things.
Yes. Just remind me we're going to talk about that a little bit. Waxing and wax casting. All right. So your gemstones, you are careful. You don't buy dyed stones or any, you buy natural stones for the most part.
So for the most part, certain stones will always have treatments. Depending on what they are, heated or dyed or
Topaz almost is always heated, right?
Oh yeah, topaz, sapphires, you name it. Yeah. Practically everything. I mean, it's hard to find really nice natural stuff, and it tends to be very expensive compared to, and I don't mind it. It just got cooked a little bit longer outside of the earth, That's how I view it. It's like, okay, well, they just did what nature didn't do for the last, how many years they did it themselves. So, no, I don't like synthetics or imitation stuff, but when needed, I'll do it. It's what does the project need, or what does it require?
Right.
But I typically, for myself, my personal stash, like this is like all natural. So
yeah, look at those. I don't know if I can. I've tried to. No, we don't want that. Ew. No. Yeah, I can't. It's not working either.
But if I switch my camera around and actually, but it's up on a stand, and if I take it off,
I'm gonna remove myself so you won't hear me for a little bit, so you can.
So, for example, I don't know if I can get this to. Like this is a common one you see a lot of. It's white labradorite, also known as rainbow moonstone. Some really rare stuff that's pretty cool. That's a very common type of thing. Is something called mausitsit or mausitsit. And it comes from Burma. And it's a type of jade, albite. And it's like neon green swirled with black. It's really hard to get that to focus on there. I'm also not very good at that. But
that looks amazing. Show a few more. Yeah.
And then one of my favorite stones that I collect a ton of is quartz, because quartz can have any type of inclusion in it practically. And some of the real, super unique ones are like clear quartz with hematite or iron. Rutilated quartz varieties, everything. I love it.
Yes.
If I see it, I'm gonna buy it. That's the easiest way into my pocketbook is to get me.
Those are just so fun. Thank you for showing us. Now, how about some of your tools? Can you pop those away and show us some of your tools? And this is
Yes.
totally me going, can I see some of your tools?
Okay, there was some lag in there, so I actually couldn't hear.
Oh,
but
okay. Yeah.
Something about tools.
Yeah.
That's what I gathered.
Yes, because we got about 10 minutes left, and so I want people to see some of your tools, and I want to see some of your tools. But we will reiterate that you don't need a lot of tools, to even get started. But it's fun to see your bench up close, or I don't know if you can take your camera off, your phone off, or.
I have no idea what's going on with the audio.
Oh, you can't hear me? Well, let's see here.
I understand a little bit of it, and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to show some tools, but
Well, let me, hopefully. Okay. Yes, show tools. Give us a tour of your bench.
Okay.
Here, I'll type it in here. Yeah, because the audio is going through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is relatively clean, but bench pin, a very important piece of equipment, is known as a flex shaft, and it holds pieces like this. And so I have a lot of interchangeable hand pieces actually that do different things. And again, all of these things took a while to accumulate. It didn't happen overnight. But Little Smith torch is really great. I use 3 different torches. There's the Little Smith and there's a Big Harris torch for casting. In these drawers, there's a lot of hammers and things like that. One of my favorite hammers is this. It's actually an old school ball peen, and it's what I use to set stones with, believe it or not, and a little punch. I found it in my grandpa's machine shed, and it's an old AFA. I couldn't tell you how old it is, but it's so old that the wood looks like that.
Yeah, that's probably close to 100 years old, probably, that hammer, I bet.
Yeah,
you hear that?
I almost seem to think it might be 40s, 50s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
60s, 70s. Yep.
Yeah.
Just ignore me. Keep going.
Okay. Obviously I have my bird box up here. It's what go in the hand tools. These make filing and all that easier. One of my favorite tools is actually this. It's really hard to focus on.
It is, yeah.
How to show this. It's kind of like, oh, everything's in the opposite. But it's actually called a barrette file, and it has a false edge, and Gallard and Velour makes these, and they're a really awesome file.
Oh.
It's number 4.
What is it? Say the name of that again. I always like a good file. What did you call that? What was the brand, the company name? What was the name of the file?
A barrette file, BARR, like a barrette, like a hair barrette. I mean,
yeah, but the company.
Oh, the company?
Yeah. You said it was
a Gallard and Velour.
So is it like German or something?
Yeah, it's Swiss. So it's got a little fish on the bottom of it, and it's spelled VALLORBE.
Wonderful.
You get them from Auto Fry. That's a great company to buy things through.
Yeah.
Are you listening, Auto Fry?
Yes. Auto Fry, would you like to sponsor?
Right.
Auto Fry, OTTOFREI.
Yeah. So then I have my saw hanging up here. And then another thing, one of the most important things actually is the optivisor, because I can't see anything. I mean, I I literally can't see anything. I use a number 5 most of the time, but we use a number 7 when it comes to stones and stuff. And then, yeah, basically files, flex shaft, torch, saw, pliers,
Hammer.
plethora of
Oh yeah,
pliers.
yeah.
And then that's kind of what I function off of for the most part. I don't need much, in terms of, I always have a steel bench block to hammer on or to set on or whatever it may be. I have a little vise that I use to hold little pieces. This is a really fun tool that's really important. It's called a facing block. I think that's what you call it. It's a type of vise, but I call it a facing block, and it does 90, 45 degree, whatever, and you can put tubing in it, cut tubing to a certain length and everything.
Right. And have
so
your
one of these
exact 90-degree angle and exact 45
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I do things a little differently, but Joe taught us how to make tools, and I made this little burr setting punch.
Sweet.
And that's what I whack with that old hammer to set bezels and things like that.
Oh, I do. Have you done a video on that on your Instagram? You should do. That would be. Have you ever taught? Because I think you would be a really good teacher.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess when I pulled myself away that I ruined my audio, but I think I can still hear myself. But anyway, yeah. What?
I don't have a video of me setting anything per se on the Instagram yet. I was trying to get one, but it's actually kind of hard because I set it like across the room in a vise, and it's not very. There's no place to put the
phone
tripod to watch. But hopefully here soon I'll have a setup at the bench.
Right.
Where you can see over the top what
yeah.
I'm doing.
And I was saying you would probably be a really good teacher. And so have you considered teaching classes?
Oh, for me teaching.
Yeah.
Is that okay? I'm trying to just put together what the audio is doing. But I've been asked a couple of times if I wanted to take on apprentices or doing, classes. I considered maybe doing potentially some classes out at Kirkwood, maybe. I don't know if I necessarily have time for that yet. I would like to teach because I've heard that you learn more teaching than you ever will by making pieces. It's a whole nother thing. But in the future, I would like to. And I would also like to travel and help people that don't have access to a metals program and all that other stuff, because there are quite a few people on Instagram that I work with directly that are asking me, hey, how do I do this?
Right.
And they don't have very many tools or anything either, but they've got the gusto to do it. And I'm like, you know what, if you gave these kids a real, gave them a bit of an opportunity, they probably just, take it and run. And that's what I really motivated to do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with just a saw and a little, and a hammer and some pliers. And I still don't have a actual torch. I mean, I have one, but I haven't turned it on. I just, there's a lot you can do. I used a Dremel, for a long time before I got a flex shaft. It's really, and you mentioned, the Egyptians didn't have all these tools. And if you ever get a chance to, when you go to any museum and you see the really old stuff, it just blows my mind how they were able to do it and do it so well with no electricity, no, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure we mentioned casting a few times. And so casting, you do wax casting. So that involves, that branch, and I'll pull that little picture up again. The branch that you made, the mother's branch, you cast that? Did you created that in wax?
Yeah, so the mother's branch is casted and then the bracelet is fabricated. So it's a good example of fabrication versus casting. They're two different things, but same.
Yes. And
same idea. I do casting. I was always taught that you cast things you wouldn't fabricate. So if you can't fabricate it, you cast it. Not saying that can't be fabricated, but it was I want it to be pretty organic.
Right.
So we're going to cast it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is video of your, there it is in wax, and there it is in metal. Very good editing too, by the way, of your video. And yeah, that's something. And when you're showing people how you're actually casting in your, that's always fun for people to see.
Yeah, this is a video of John casting, and he's casting some bronze, which is a pretty high melting temp, which was kind of, and this is just a fun, goofy video that I was like, you know, people love to watch John on Instagram. He has no idea that they like that, but
and John is your dentist friend, right? Your dental.
Yeah, he's a hidden celebrity. He just has no idea yet.
But what was his title? What, he worked in dental. Anyway, I'm here. You're gonna let it fly, right? Woo! So then the metal flows in, the wax melts away, and then you end up with your cast piece, which is just lovely. It's really, really something. So impressive. Well, I've kept people on long enough. I've taken up enough of your time. I really, really appreciate your time and your patience with me. I'm sorry that I think you're having trouble hearing me, but I think it's coming through on the YouTube okay.
Okay. No, I thank you so much for taking the time with me. It was just an absolute blast. And I'm trying to decipher, like I can decipher some of it, but I'm like, oh, nope. You know, like...
Well, we will say thank you and good night, and see you soon. So we'll just we'll just say good night, and thanks for putting up with me, Elizabeth. So, okay.